The defense struck back on day 2 of Seattle Seahawks training camp. What's going on, everybody? Good morning. We have made it to Friday. Today is day 3 of the Seattle Seahawks 2024 training camp. Day 2 was another eventful day, and before we get to day 3, we're going to recap and kind of put together all the different pieces of day 2 that are interesting to us as fans. The main takeaway from day 2 was probably the defense. The defense had a better day. The defense made some plays. The defense did some things that we didn't really see in day 1. Day 1, the offense kind of ruled the roost, but the defense struck back yesterday. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, just kind of wrap everything up, and then we're on to day 3. Before we get into the video, I hope you will enjoy this video. Please like it if you do so. Please like the video. It helps the channel out. Subscribe to the channel if you're new and you want daily Seahawks content. You can become a channel member for $2 a month. Click the bell for notifications. Those are the best ways to help support the channel. All right, so in terms of capturing what happened on day 2, the News Tribune has this really good article from Greg Bell where he summarizes some of the big things that he saw. I'm not going to go through the entire article, but I do want to highlight a few things that he wanted to draw attention to. And it's this first one that is really going to get some attention, I think, because it's this first one that could really swing things. Because the second guy that he writes about in this article, Greg Bell, is Devin Witherspoon. We all know how good Devin Witherspoon is. He was really good last year. Nobody's going to be surprised or shocked or taken aback if he's really good again this year. But Derek Hall is a guy who did basically nothing in 2023, and there's a lot riding on his ability to do something big this year, or at the very least be a relevant, noticeable part of this defense. If Derek Hall can't get it together and do something good this year, then we're going to be headed in a really bad direction with him, and people are going to be very pessimistic about him going forward, and it's also going to lower the ceiling of this current 2024 defense. Well, one of the highlights so far from training camp is Derek Hall has looked really good. And just to quickly summarize what happened over the first couple of days, he looked so good running with the backups that he got to play with the starters yesterday, and he made some plays again. He was able to, you don't actually sack the quarterback in training camp, but he had plays that would have been sacks normally, so great stuff. So yeah, that would be, I think, the main headline coming out of day 2. Derek Hall looks like a different player, much better player, a player who will be impactful for the team in 2024. We also had a write-up on Devin Witherspoon. He was just kind of highlighting the fact that Macdonald's playing him all over the place. We're seeing him being played at nickel. We're seeing him being played outside. I still kind of suspect that this defense is going to end up deploying Witherspoon in the slot when we're in nickel and then outside in base. I think that's the way we're going to do things. It's pretty similar to it's pretty similar to what we did last year. I think it'll be a little bit more of a focus on the slot, because in the modern NFL, the slot corner position has become so important. Having a guy as good as Witherspoon manning that position as much as possible is, I think, a great benefit. So yeah, there was a write-up on Witherspoon. We talked about the quarterbacks a little bit here. Geno looks much better than Howell. Howell had an interception yesterday, as did Geno. They both had one. But overall, Geno's looked much better throwing deep balls. Geno's looked much better throwing just passes in general, it seems like. So far, all the same there. A little bit on PJ Walker as well. Reminds people of Seneca Wallace. Some people who watch my videos may not remember Seneca Wallace. That might have been a little before their time, but he was kind of the original backup quarterback who wasn't very good, but he could make plays with his legs, and he wasn't bad. He just wasn't really good, and he was kind of fun to have around, and he did the thing. He did the thing as a backup quarterback. And that's the main gist of this Greg Bell article. And just to quickly summarize what he saw, other people saw similar things as well. I think it was Mike Dugar was writing about Derek Hall a little bit. But those are the main big points coming out of camp. We also got some stuff from Brady Henderson here. There was a big play with DK Metcalf. He made like a 50-yard catch, diving catch on a deep ball near the goal line. I think he was down at like the 2, beating Reek Woolen. And it was good coverage, too. It was just one of those plays where Geno threw a really good ball and DK Metcalf made a really good catch. So there's a little bit of explosiveness to this wide receiver versus cornerback room. And hopefully iron will sharpen iron and these guys will continue to work on each other and get better. Going back to what I said about the defense playing a little bit better than they did on day one, the offense also wasn't quite as good. We had a fumbled shotgun snap. We had at least one false start, according to Brady Henderson here. So we are seeing things start to catch up a little bit, but I think it's worth noting that early in training camp, usually the defense is going to be way ahead of the offense. It's just easier for those guys to hit the ground running than it is for the offense. So when we hear that the offense looks really good through 2 days overall, even though I know that it was a little bit worse yesterday, that's a really encouraging sign for the offense, because remember, this offense is new. It's not a great sign for the defense necessarily, but it's a new defense too. So I don't know. I find this to be interesting more than anything. I'm not going to say it's bad. I'm not going to say it's good. I will say that I feel like there are more stakes in the offense being really good this year, because I don't believe that this Seahawks defense is going to be able to just flip the switch and go from one of the worst defenses to one of the best, because it's a lot of the same players. So I could see the defense being average this year, and I think that would be really good. That would be a step in the right direction if we could just have an average defense. The offense, on the other hand, that's a unit that I think could get up into the top 10, top 8, potentially, because they had a ton of obstacles to overcome last year, and they were still like 17th in points scored, something like that. And that was with a bad kicker. So I think this offense could do it, and hearing stuff like this actually encourages me. We also had, like I said, both quarterbacks threw an interception. One of the interceptions was Julian Love, the day after signing a big extension, jumps an out route to JSN, being thrown by Geno Smith. It was a 7-on-7 play, but good to see. Obviously, Julian Love's going to be a big part of this defense for the next several years. And he goes out there and makes a big play right after signing that contract. And there was another interception, this one from Sam Howell, throwing a ball to D. Eskridge. I think this was a deep throw. Artie Burns picks it off. So I don't know if Artie Burns is going to have room on the roster to stick around here, but he's a nice little veteran. He's a good veteran, man. Artie Burns belongs in this league. And I don't know if he's going to belong here because we have so much depth at the position. But it's important to note that we have him here in case somebody gets hurt. And if nobody picks him up, he might be a guy who sits on the couch and waits for the call when somebody gets hurt for the Seahawks, and we just bring him right in. But good to see things here. One little quote from Julian Love that caught my attention. He shouted out Kobe Bryant as being a slept-on player. So obviously it's going to be hard for Kobe Bryant to find playing time in this defense right now. But the thing is, I still really like the skill set that he brings to the table. That ability to punch the ball out and force all those fumbles, that's not something that just comes everywhere, right? That doesn't grow on trees. So I'd love to see Kobe Bryant figure it out. Find a position where he can play good and let his ability to force turnovers just push him over the edge as a good player. Maybe he won't ever be great in coverage. Maybe he won't be the best tackler ever. But if he's forcing 5 fumbles a season, and that's pretty much what he did his rookie year, then you're going to make up a lot of that that negativity. You're going to make up for a lot of the plays you give up. Also, little roster note here. This is field goals right here. Marquise Blair. The headline here doesn't give the name, but Marquise Blair worked out for the Seahawks yesterday. So obviously we don't necessarily have a massive need in this secondary, although safety's not great because of the Jarek Reed injury, so I wouldn't rule anything out. And I think it's also very important to note that Marquise Blair was a player that Pete Carroll seemed to really not like. He really seemed to not want to play him, and he really seemed like his motivation was to keep him off the field at all costs. There was an extended period of time where the Seahawks were starting Tedrick Thompson at safety, and people were clamoring for Marquise Blair, and Pete wouldn't do it. And when Tedrick Thompson started playing so badly that he had to be benched, then Pete went out and traded for Quandre Diggs. And based on his comments at the time and based off the implication that he was giving off, he just really didn't think Blair had it. He couldn't trust him. It didn't matter that he would go out there and be a good playmaker and make plays and do good things. I remember that game we played against the Ravens in 2019. Marquise Blair was good. But Pete felt like he couldn't trust him, and if Pete doesn't trust a player, he doesn't want to play him. Even if he trusts another player who is bad, he'd rather have the player who he knows is bad than a player who might be really, really bad, if that makes sense. I think that was the mentality here. So I'm not ruling out Marquise Blair being able to find some degree of success with the new coaching staff, and maybe Mike Macdonald's the guy. I don't know. Obviously, if you brought him in, he'd be a pure backup, probably behind Kayvon Wallace as well, but it's interesting. And that's really about it. So yeah, that's basically all the information we have from day 2. Mostly good stuff, encouraging stuff. This Derek Hall news is excellent, and the Marquise Blair stuff is at least interesting. So got another day today. We'll see what happens. I'll be keeping my ear close to the ground on stuff, but so far, Seahawks training camp, I like what I'm hearing.